Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, King Dia, Lauren Frey, Grim Clover, Internet, Bloodsport, City of Steel, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So I thought it was about time for a recap on what exactly is going to happen to the Microsoft Studio acquisitions, because I think a lot of people are kind of neglecting to accept the reality of the situation. People don't understand that this isn't a win for Microsoft, essentially. They have no idea that Microsoft is essentially flushing money down the toilet for a bunch of useless studios that will benefit them in no meaningful way. People have no idea that Microsoft has a long history of fucking with every single one of their studios. They don't have the capacity to build up a business around video games because they're mismanaged as fuck. They have no ability to creatively control a company or a team, or to like build them up or like redistribute talent or do any of that. They are essentially stuck leeching from PlayStation developers. Like, that's basically all they've been doing from the beginning, or Sega, I suppose. Early on, the Xbox actually got a bunch of sequels to Dreamcast games. Jet Set Radio Future, for example. Shenmue 2 was released on Xbox in the West. So there are a bunch of examples like that. But like, Xbox is, as a company, as a brand, cannot manage its first-party studios worth a shit. People keep talking about all the studios they're buying, all the IPs they technically own, but they don't really seem to want to talk about the GOAT developer they purchased in the early 2000s that never produced anything of value under Microsoft, in spite of a big marketing push, a lot of support, and a lot of games under their belt. That's right. Nobody seems to want to realize, nobody seems to want to point out that Microsoft acquired Rareware and then proceeded to do absolutely nothing with them. I'm not exaggerating. Anyone who's defending Xbox era Rareware is like deluding themselves, because Rareware in the mid 2000s was a shell of its former self. Like in the 90s, they were producing some of the best games ever, stuff that I still play today. Stuff like Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong Country, GoldenEye, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day. The list really goes on and on and on. So many great games. What happens after the acquisition? A bunch of lazy sequels, nuts and bolts, Viva Pinata, and then Connect Sports. And I know there are a lot of people who are like damage controlling for Rare these days and trying to say that like Sea of Thieves is based. Like Sea of Thieves is making Rare great again. It's better than it was in the 90s. Those people are completely delusional. They are out of touch with reality. And that includes like Rare itself, by the way. They do not want to admit that they are like nowhere near as popular as they were back then. The only time they even get talked about is whenever they do something that harkens back to the old days, right? Like, I don't think anyone plays Sea of Thieves other than like the most brain dead consumer, brain dead consumers on the planet. All right, like I don't think anybody like who has a single brain cell like plays that shit, you know, or was even like really looking forward to it, honestly. Like, I don't know why there was like this big surprise that the game was unfinished and bad, because they've been doing this for 20 years now. I don't know why it was such a big shock to so many people that the great Rare didn't put out a good game on Xbox, because they haven't been good since they left Nintendo. I don't know what's so controversial about this, but what can we learn from this, though? What can we learn from this incident, from this happening? Like, what can we learn from this event? Microsoft cannot manage for shit. They had a bunch of talent at Rareware who slowly bled away over a period of time to the point where like the studio is not even recognizable. The same thing is going to happen to Double Fine. The same thing is going to happen to Activision Blizzard. The same thing is going to happen to every other studio they acquired over the past couple of years. I believe that Obsidian's a good example. Bethesda's a good example. You can't even keep track of all the studios they bought. Holy shit. Basically, they acquired all these big name studios, but they will not be able to do shit with them. And I think we're already starting to see that with like Starfield and like all these other projects. Like we're seeing like a very big lack of enthusiasm about upcoming Xbox exclusive titles because we've seen what happens, right? We've seen what happened to Gears of War. We've seen what happened to Halo. Halo, I think, is very understated just how badly Microsoft bungled one of the biggest gaming IPs of the mid 2000s, right? Like this is an IP that really should have established itself as the military sci-fi shooter, but now it's completely forgotten and completely dead, right? It's been replaced by superior alternatives, and that's really that really should not have happened. Like Halo failed to evolve, it failed to change with the times. It's basically just a shell of its former self. That's only selling itself to like a niche audience based on the brand name itself. Nobody actually likes modern Halo. 343 like bungled the entire thing. And like I don't think that can be disputed at this point, especially after they like announced they canceled like on like co-op play, which is like a standard for Halo fans. I can't believe this studio is so incompetent, and I don't believe. What's more, I can't believe that like people like Angry Joe, who are supposedly huge Halo fans, aren't calling this shit out for what it is. Like they'll shit on Nintendo for like alleged misdeeds, like having not producing new F-Zero games because of Fire Emblem Heroes and like striking down copyrighted Nintendo tracks. But oh no, like Halo, we can't talk about that. Like we'll alienate our primary sponsors. We're supposed to shill Halo. We can't actually criticize it. That's the mindset these people are in, honestly. Like it's pathetic to see so many people like Angry Joe like just kind of refuse to acknowledge that Microsoft can't handle their studios. Like right now, we're seeing like people who are legitimately excited for Fable 4. Like what? Like Fable 3 wasn't that impressive, and like Fable 2, like from the beginning, I think Fable had this reputation for like never living up to the hype, and yet somehow, for some reason, this guy is going to be excited for Fable 4 when Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out. Like is he serious? Is he delusional? Apparently he must be like more sane than I am, because he probably would remember Breath of the Wild 2 is Tears of the Kingdom now. I cannot remember this stuff anymore. I'm so out of it. But anyway, people like that, like the YouTube community, like they should have been like way more critical of Microsoft over the past couple of years. There should be way more skepticism about how they're going to handle all these studio acquisitions. But in my mind, there is absolutely no doubt of what is going to happen. Nothing. Like there's going to be nothing produced. It's going to be a lot of shit. All I really anticipate happening, which I do think is a good thing, is that like PlayStation will lose all these developers, which again is a good thing. It'll drive PlayStation out of the industry, and like third parties are going to have to rely more and more on PC and Xbox in order to stay off of Nintendo hardware, and both of those platforms are failing as well. So again, like the sooner PlayStation gets out of the industry, the sooner we'll start to see things like radically improve, I think. So my view on that, I think that Microsoft is doomed to fail, honestly. Like I think the only reason they were ever able to like compete in the gaming sphere is that they were like willing to shell out like millions of dollars to compete with Sony in like a hopeless battle for console supremacy. And like in the end, I feel like both consoles are failing, But the thing about Microsoft is they're kind of like hanging in there purely on the basis of being a much larger company, of being able to like throw hundreds of millions, it feels like, into like trying to make Game Pass viable, which by the way is never going to happen. It's it's like there's going to be a last stand of like Xbox Game Pass versus Nintendo, but like in the end, I think Game Pass is going to fold. I think it's going to be like a service that like is just kind of incorporated into like TVs and like PCs and stuff like that, and then like it'll make the jump to Switch, and then like Switch will be the dominant gaming platform, and then we'll kind of deal with this like Steam versus Nintendo, and I don't think Steam can compete like long term with Nintendo at all, especially when it comes to their first party development. Like, are you really going to say that like Half-Life Alyx is more relevant than Tears of the Kingdom? Like, no. The answer is no. Nintendo has essentially won the console war, but we're kind of in this like weird position where like nobody wants to admit it because like there are so many people who like kind of who have staked their entire careers on like supporting PlayStation and Xbox, right? Like people like Maximilian Dude, they can't talk about like how Street Fighter 6 looks disappointing because then that would like that would upset the sponsors. So they kind of have to like to shill these products that they don't actually like in order to like get a paycheck, and that's very sad, honestly. And it's kind of pathetic seeing these YouTubers, these critics, like just not address the problems with Xbox. Like I feel almost like in the current age, like nobody really talks about Xbox's inability to maintain their studios at all. It's absurd, but that is exactly the kind of industry we're invested in.